He and I went to lots of Coleridge conferences together over the years. That's how he first heard about John Jay,
Uh-huh.
or when he was a grad student.
Oh, at the Graduate Center? Was he?
He was a grad student at the University of Washington,
Ah,
UW, they call it.
I was at John Jay before I started teaching there because Robert Lifton had a center and I was part of
Yeah.
his center.
Uh-huh. And you were in that teaching there, or?
No, I wasn't teaching there. I was teaching elsewhere, but I would come to John Jay for Robert's meetings all the time.
He was a luminary.
Yeah, he was, yeah, extraordinary and extraordinary meetings that we had. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how many people, or I guess I could look and see, how many people are you expecting? Well, you have 9 now.
We're expecting about 20 total. It may be closer to 15, looking at the weather, people changing. But this is why I'm muting, because of the background noises. Excuse me.
It's okay.
Are those children?
Yeah.
Good. Good.
One child, although it sounds like 3.
Sounds like it does. How old is your child? How old?
Excuse me?
He's 7 and he'll be 8 next weekend.
Oh, wow. Nice. Congrats. Yeah.
Thank you.
Active age.
Is he in person school or in?
He's in school. He's in 2nd grade in a mixed class because he's special ed. And right now he's virtual and we're doing classes online. And in the fall, he was going most days for a half day, and we'll probably put him back in April.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 2 of my grandchildren are 5 and 7 in Texas, in Austin, Texas.
Mine too. They're in San
Oh.
Antonio.
Oh, wow.
5 and 2 in San Antonio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 5 and 7-year-olds are in person schools, so they're very happy.
Hello, Anya.
Alexander, hi.
Very nice to see you. That's a surprise.
I was just speaking about you. I was wondering if
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Alexander. Good to see you.
Hello.
Lindsay.
Hi.
Melania, you're muted. Guess should we mute ourselves? Hi, Melania.
Hello.
So I would wait until a little after 1:40 to get started,
Yeah. I think
because
that-
there are people are going
probably
to
a
come
good
in late
idea.
usually and last minute. But it's feeling like old home week in here already, so enjoy.
So,
Thank you for coming, Michelle. Just responding to the chat post.
so Alexander, what are you writing? Who are you writing about now?
What I'm writing about now,
Yes.
this very moment. This was a moment of inspiration. This is a series of climate change poems that will develop alongside this.
Oh, poems. Oh,
I'm joking. You never know what happens at the early hours of the morning. So.
the most productive person I know is a poet named Peter Larkin, who is in Warwick, and he is pouring out books of poetry on the natural world. And he's now written some other huge thing on the ode of to intimation, on the intimations ode. So he said, I've never had a more productive period in my life. I don't know why that is, but it is.
Well,
He thrives in solitude, I think.
I don't know. I mean, it's for us. I mean, I don't feel so much in, you know, it's the teaching is really, you know, it takes a lot more time and energy to teach this way. So you know, I haven't had a moment where I felt, oh, I don't, you know, what now? It's more, you know, finding out ways to get this, you know, somehow done remotely. And of course, there's far more sort of, I mean, on the one hand, you know, maybe it's even good this way, but you have far more interactions with the students who need far more
You are having more.
support and help right now just to you know, hold it together and get to the end of the semester, because it's just, you know, it's such a stressful way of
Yes.
trying to do anything. So it's, you know, I feel relatively lucky because you know, I taught hybrid courses for
Yes,
quite some time now, many years ago. So at least I had sort of a halfway working system in place when all this came over us last spring.
you were completely adept at dealing with a Zoom class. I think you were doing that years ago.
Well, this was, I mean, I was always working asynchronous. So it's more the, you know, the whole discussion board asynchronous work. I mean, the Zoom is a nice addition, and particularly once we got the breakout room capability, and it, you know, made it possible to sort of create a little small groups for small group work during the class, which allowed the students to open up a little bit more. But it's still, I think it's, I mean, that's just me, but the asynchronous part, you know, makes it, helps the student, because it's, you know, for so many reasons, being there at an exact time during the week is just not feasible for many of them. So you have to sort of find other ways.
So you're speaking directly to each one separately in different.
No, this is, I mean, the way I do it, it's basically through discussion questions and prompts on the readings, and then the students pose and respond to each other. And it's been, I have to say, I'm really impressed with many students who really post very thoughtful, regular responses to the text. So it's been quite productive that way. But of course, it, you know, it generates a lot more work for both sides.
You have some students who have totally dropped away from the screen or no longer appear or get discouraged.
You know, this is just what I would say. I mean, for some students, because they're, you know, the financial pressures are great, so they need to take on more work, and it makes it harder for them to do their coursework. So it's, you know, that's a general problem now, even more than it was before, because it's just, it's very precarious for everybody.
I understand that from the John Jay Charity Office,
Yeah.
that what they really wanted was money for food insecurity. So they didn't want donations for the faculty. They wanted food money.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, we've been able to raise money. I mean, there was a big drive a few months ago to bring in donations to support the students. So unfortunately, that was successful, at least to some degree. I just see, I'm looking at the time, we're at 1:41. So Gina, I will just leave it. we should
So
probably wait a few
I
more
want to
minutes.
welcome everyone. I do believe we'll have a few people joining us. One of them just texted the TLC, Ivana, if you don't mind sending the link.
Yeah, no, I was saying we need, I just
Yeah.
realized we sort of should be.
Right. And I
I
will ramble on because it's the pandemic and I've reached burnout and parenting sort of scattering. So forgive me. But I'm very excited about this series and I'm excited that we're recording it so we can share afterwards and that we're starting what I hope will be a tradition of doing this, over the next years, at least once a year in some form, because there's so much that we have in our faculty and our faculty student staff collaborations to share about actual work we're doing. And there's so many questions so many of us have about how we could do it better. I really want to thank Lindsay and Alexander and Milena and Mary and Karen and everyone else who is part of the Environmental Justice Council, partnered with them, and coming forward to help us out this term. I think now is definitely the time. We can pick any given day and look at the news and find something that's relevant, and you all have something particular to share with us that's going to be valuable. So Alexander is going to take over and manage the series from here, and I'll just jump in from time to time with comments, kind of each session we have. Thanks.
Okay, I was just wondering, I don't know if you did make me co-host already, but if you could make us co-hosts, Gina, then we're able to.
All the panelists and the moderator are co-hosts.
Okay, great. Thanks. So yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And I want to start out by thanking Gina for proposing that we do this series this semester and for nudging us to put this program together. I really appreciate it. So thank you. And also want to thank Karen Malpete, Milena Popov, and Mary Ting for being here today and doing this panel. They're 3 veteran teachers in the environmental justice program who've taught our core courses now for 6 years, basically since the program has been in existence. And I'm glad that they could come today to share their work in the classroom and their ideas. And I thought I want to say a few things about the program, just maybe to just situate us for this series. I mean, the first thing should probably say, currently the program coordinator is Sandra Swenson and Kate Good in science. Kate is here with us. Sandra is teaching right now, so she sends her regrets. She couldn't be here. I coordinated the program from its inception until last fall when Sandra took over. And the program was first conceived in the wake of Hurricane Sandy. So we have had a connection to environmental catastrophe, unfortunately, from the very beginning. And we started offering courses in the minor in 2014. And the minor was from the beginning conceived as a transdisciplinary minor that was meant to complement the majors across the college, because we obviously recognize that the topics that we're talking about in this series and that the minor is devoted to are not topics that any one department or discipline can take on. These are very complex matters that require collaboration between the sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities. So we created 2 core courses that are both located in the general education program to sort of reach the broadest possible range of students. The environmental justice course that Karen, Milena, and Mary have all been teaching, and an introduction to sustainability studies that Milena has also been teaching. And then there are 10 departments that are part of the program that offer electives for our students. And so let me just see if I can share my screen. Give me just a second. There we go. I am almost there. Let's see if this will work. Okay, can you see the screen now with our program pages? And so this was created as a venture really for collaboration across the curriculum, and I'm part of what I think we're all hoping for this series is that we can generate ideas and impulses for people to maybe, in addition to the courses that are already there, integrate assignments or units into your courses, so we can broaden this out and reach as many students with these important topics as possible. So I just wanted to show you a few things, and I will put the, what is this? Sorry, I will put the URL in the chat later, but you can also see it up there. And just wanted to point you to some resources that the program has already available for you via our website. We don't have to walk through this in detail, but if you come to the front page, you'll see a tag cloud here. And you can follow these tags to the topics. They will mainly lead you to blog posts by both faculty and students that may be helpful for you in your classes. Just take a look what you might find. There are here some faculty publications. Some are linked articles, so there's some resources there that might be helpful to you. There's more information about the minor here, obviously, but I mainly wanted to show you the web resources that we have available that I think can all be useful for teaching. I don't know if you know, but the library has an environmental justice research guide that is quite helpful. I've linked here to the Teaching and Learning Center pages that Gina and her team have put together. Then there are a variety of websites here that I think provide general resources that might be useful. You can take a look. I just wanted to point out a couple of them which have explicit teaching resources. This is here the ASLE page. While it's the Association for Study of Literature and the Environment, the syllabi and assignments you'll find there are quite useful also for people from other fields. So you might look there for some inspiration. If you're in the humanities, there's the Teaching Climate Change in the Humanities site, which has reading lists and resources. And then the NAACP page has a PDF which teaching resources and lesson plans. While these are mainly geared for high schools, again, they are quite helpful for inspiration, and you can use them, adapt them, and otherwise just play around with some of the resources here. But I think there's a good deal of material that you can use if you're interested in developing units or courses. All right, that was all I just wanted to quickly show you. Let me stop sharing. And with that, without further ado, I will hand it over to our panelists. And I thought we would, each of our panelists will talk for about 10 minutes. And I thought it might be nice to just leave a few minutes after each talk for immediate questions. And then we should still have at least 15 to 20 minutes at the end for general discussion. So I thought we'd start out with Mary Ting, who has been teaching not just in the environmental justice program, but also in the art department for a long time. And Mary, why don't you start and share with us what you'd like to say?
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see it? Do
Yep.
you see it? Okay. Okay, well, first off, before I even get into this, thank you so much, Alexander and Gina. I'm really happy to be in this program today and also in the environmental justice program in general. And I have to say that teaching in in environmental justice and in the art department, to me, makes so much sense. It really keeps me sane. And I don't think I could do one without the other, because I think they really link up, and it really makes it possible to do the other one. So as far as what I do in my classroom, I've always started out with students introducing themselves and talking about their relationship to nature. And I ask them a series of questions, which the students seem to really enjoy, that opportunity to really ponder about their own personal relationship, what it means to them, what wonder means to them. And then recently, I, of course, included pandemic reflections and also their understanding of the interrelationships and the injustices as a way to start out. And that's really, in so many ways, how so much of what I do. In every week, I design these PowerPoint lectures that every semester I update because the news is changing so constantly. And we want to be timely. I don't use textbooks. I do have readings that I provide the PDFs for. And I use a wide variety of things to keep it very interesting, timely, and animated. So I, for example, I guess in the beginning about understanding where we are, and this leads into their midterm project about first thinking locally and our environmental issues right outside our door, but thinking about the historical cultural context, because as an artist, I'm always doing that type of research, looking at the past to understand our current situation and where to go in the future. So, using the Mannahatta site, Wallachia, and seeing what was existed on these blocks before, the flora and fauna that was there. I bring in NYBG and Danielle Atha, a botanist who does New York City Ecoflora Project. Now I also do a panel. I have the person who's the steward from the East River Park steward talking about flooding, and then comparing it with other things, like, for example, like Katrina. And I use this incredible, beautiful graphic nonfiction called Drowned by Don Brown. And I highly recommend it because it's not only just gorgeously illustrated, but it is incredibly well researched. And the students really react very strongly to it. And then I also supplement with a lot of my own photos too as well. Like this is outside my door during Hurricane Sandy. I had also done an exhibition for John Jay, and this site is still available, endangered exhibition. And I think it's another way of telling stories and getting people interested, a little bit different than the standard news, but all, of course, very well researched. And all these are from artists that are very invested in their issues and actually have NGOs that they founded. So again, another example of another way of tackling a topic. So William Powada, who did all this extensive research about the linkage of the, for example, the Koch family or the Sackler family. So, and then I also do a midterm and a final, which is also just sort of moving forward from where those weekly assignments are. And again, it's asking them to investigate what's outside their door as far as an environmental issue goes. And it's a new thing for them. A lot of them get nervous at first because they've never done that kind of more investigative research. But I give them, a lot of guidelines and help. For some, it's the first time they might even contact their community board or attend a meeting. There are all different ways of tackling this project, but in the end, students really enjoy it. They do a short presentation for the entire class their peer reviews. The final is going a little bit broader, where they do an investigation of the full circle of a product, whether it's your favorite coffee or chocolate, so that they're understanding the global connections of the raw material to the labor issues, to the shipping, to the, all the human rights along the way, the manufacture, the post-consumer waste, et cetera. So they're understanding the links, and students really, they produce advocacy posters, they do all different things. And I think this is one of their favorite projects, actually. Also interspersed with everything is that I bring in guest speakers. It varies every semester, but generally there are 4 to 5. And I feel like this allows them an opportunity to see, working people in the field. Also, it's an opportunity for networking, connections, and the reality that there are all different types of jobs out there. So sometimes I include someone from enforcement, like Department of Environmental Conservation, or from the legal end with Earth Justice, also community, like with We Act for Environmental Justice, or policy with corporate accountability, as well as science, and then local advocacy groups. We also, when possible, obviously not now, but we, I would always have one kind of going outside when weather permitted it, whether it's visiting the Javits Center and their green roof, seeing the amazing things that New York has that most people don't realize. One semester we took a bird walk with Jeffrey Ward, who is the youngest top bird guide. Jeffrey's here in the middle. And we did Street Central Park. That was a lot of fun as well. And really, I think, revealing and eye-opening for the students. Jeffrey is part of a group that is organizing on behalf of Black birders since the whole incident happened with Kristen Cooper at Central Park. I also have extras because I'm always doing projects or things that I can invite students to attend. So one year, a bunch of us went to the New York City Ivory Crush in Central Park and actually got to crush ivory. So these are some of the EJ students, and actually getting to select a piece of ivory and put it in the crusher. So these are obviously after school. And then some of my projects where I was going through 14th Street and what it used to be, and we were actually remapping it, like what was there before, putting back the signage for the imaginary signage for the hickory forest and bringing back the beavers. I also, students got to participate, and I did it as well as researchers for this publication. It would have, this publication is not possible without us. And then from that, I think there's a whole give and exchange between myself as a teacher and myself as an artist, thinker, writer, researcher. And now I'm doing other work that I've actually even hired some students to work with me on. So, I feel like it's completely, the students are there very active as speakers and doing their short presentations as well. So we all learn from each other. And that's it.
All right, thanks so much, Mary. Really appreciate it. So I think we should open it up for questions just for a few minutes. So please, if anybody has a question, there's few enough of us here that you can wave at the screen, or if you're not visible, you can just raise your hand under the participants button. Yes, Margaret, please. You just need to unmute yourself. You're currently muted.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I put this in the chat, but one day driving into John Jay, I heard on an NPR report that 18-year-olds are eligible to join community boards.
That's great.
So
Yeah. So, and actually, students have actually attended, and then they update it, you know, because a lot of times the meetings are happening after our projects are done. And then some students have even given presentations. I had one student do a report about how where he lived in the neighborhood would not allow, for example, homes to put solar panels up. And then because they thought it was ugly, so he actually made a presentation and gave it to the neighborhood board. And because of his presentation, the neighborhood board was actually just reconsidering the whole thing. So yeah, the students have been pretty incredible with that. And also it's just this whole thing about empowering each other. Like there's things that you could do, simple things like calling up 311 if you don't have a tree, if your tree pit is empty, you can request one. So all these different things. So we continually add to each other's pool of knowledge. But that's great that they can be eligible. Actually, one of my speakers, Daniel Athe, he actually with a whole bunch of other naturalists are in constant, every meeting that their community board does, the naturalists attend so that they can have an actual say and that everything's done with a really environmental conscious philosophy. So that's great about students being able to be part of the board. Thank you. Any other questions? I would also say that one of the things I find is that it's so hard because the topic is so broad. So I try and pick like big headings, you know, whether it's about our oceans or about our food production. And then from there, you know, try and get the bigger picture, you know, with the relationship of overfishing to say seafood slavery, so that they're always seeing the connections. And then from that, they can go on to do their final and, you know, be very cognizant that there's probably going to be a human rights issue along the way. So that's it, building up of realizations.
Great.
Could I ask another question?
Sure, please. Go ahead.
Do you feel, Mary, that your students become activists in a sustained way afterwards? And or is there some kind of a student climate organization at John Jay with which they can become linked?
Well, there's definitely the student club, but I have found that many students, not many, but well, handfuls of students come in already with an activist mindset, or are able to, from another like activism about labor or human rights or immigrant rights, are able to make the connection. And then definitely there's a portion that because of the course I feel have pivoted or for sure are going to carry this into whatever field they do. But like, for example, I have a handful of 6 students right now that I'm doing grad school recommendations, and they're all trying to incorporate that, whether it's urban design, sustainability, or law. So yeah, I think it's growing.
Great.
Good.
I'm in the process of, oh, there's David. So just one more question and then we should move on to Karen. Please go ahead, David.
Yes, in brief, I'm curious, you all have way more experience in this than I do, but I notice in my field, financial reporting, there is a movement to get corporations to report their sustainability measures using whatever metrics are currently currently put forth. Problem is that the standardization is lacking. Do you guys see like at the corporate level, is this more part of the problem, you think, or is this, I mean, is this lip service, or do you think like where activism is headed, where this is going to be useful, it's not really going to be at the corporate level? You know what I mean? Because I recognize, even though it is my field, that there is a lot of, you know, window dressing going on. I'm just curious what you all think about these kind of measures and movements at the corporate level.
That's one of the things that we definitely discuss. when we're looking at things like the Coke industry or the Sacklers or and I have corporate accountability come in. So where they're trying to actually change policy. And for sure there's greenwashing, but I think there is some movement that's real where stockholders are bringing up all these proposals where they're, forcing the issue, whether it's with Pepsi or with any of the corporations. So I think it's a mixed bag. And certainly they're very cognizant of the public opinion. I mean, there's that big case going on right now with the chocolate, with the cocoa and the human slavery issues. So that's a big one that just came up. So I think it's going to come up more and more. So.
Yeah, thank you. I have most of my direct experience with ExxonMobil, and that was not
Or Chevron.
resolved satisfactorily, at least from the perspective of
No.
climate issues. Yeah, and
No
but
surprise
thank you.
All right, I think in the interest of time, we do need to move on. Just wanted to say real quick, I put the link to the John Jay Student Club page and the Environmental Club blog in the chat. So if you have students who want to get involved, you can point them to the Environmental Club, and of course also to me or Sandra or Kate to get information about the program. But we should move on to Karen, who has also been teaching since the first hour of the program and is also in theater and music. So please, Karen, if you want to share with us.
Hi, thank you. Thanks, Alexander. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for having me here. This is a real pleasure to teach in this program. I find the students wonderful. I find the interdisciplinary aspect of the program terrific, and the colleagues also terrific, and all of us coming at it from slightly different perspectives that overlap and sort of broaden our mind. I'm going to try and share my screen. I don't see what I want here. Yes, I will get it. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. So this is my website. I'm a playwright. I'm an eco playwright. And in 2012, I started researching climate change and climate scientists. This is the play that resulted from that research. We opened it in 2014. We took it to Paris for the Art Cop in 2015. We redid it in March of 2018 at La Mama. These are photos that will just scroll by while I read to you the kind of rationale behind the play, which is called Extreme Weather, WHETHER, obviously, asking a question. That's Nancy Romer, who's a climate activist who spoke one night. So ours is an interdisciplinary program, and I learned climate science by writing a play. I was struck by the human dilemma of the climate scientists, which prefigured the human dilemma of many, many medical professionals today. What do you do if what you know to be true is not believed? What do you do if the government censors you and the fossil fuel industry attacks you for simply trying to share the seriousness of what you know? This seemed to me to be a classical dramatic dilemma. Scientists like Jim Hansen and Jennifer Francis, whose science and lives inform my play Extreme Weather, chose to become social activists. Jim resigned from his longtime job as head of climate science at NASA in the very same week that we did the first reading of this play, and he spoke after the first reading of the play. I'll come back to that. So scientists like Jim Hansen, Jim resigned from his longtime job as head of climate science at NASA because the government for which he worked was censoring his research, our government. He had gone to Congress in 1988 to tell Congress that climate change had begun, and they ignored him. He was ignored and vilified. By 2013, he'd had enough. Hansen was arrested outside the White House protesting the Keystone Pipeline and resigned his top government job. Extreme weather is based upon his story and that of Jennifer Francis, Arctic ice scientist, who was among the first to recognize that a quickly warming Arctic and fast melting ice was going to seriously affect the weather in the Northern Hemisphere, causing the sorts of extreme weather we've experienced just now in Texas, which is how I started. Every semester we have a climate disaster. So we've been talking about Texas too. Jennifer was attacked also. So I came to see climate scientists as classic dramatic heroes. The knowledge they amassed from their life's work forced them to make life-changing, heroic choices. And this in part is the story of my play. What do you do when the truth you know is censored and attacked? On this website, there are lots of, whoops, why am I not scrolling? Okay, so here's one. Dale Jamieson, who teaches at NYU, wrote a book called Hope in Dark Times, and he spoke after one of our performances. There's Jim Hansen after opening night with the cast. So there are lots of resources on this actual website, a whole list of people who've spoken after the plays, and we have their videotapes up there. So there's Jim again, and there's Jennifer Francis speaking, and Jim, and other people, Andy Revkin, who wrote about the play. So there are lots of resources here. I'm not teaching, the play is published. I'm not, I want to get out of shared screen. I'm not teaching the play I don't know how to do this.
It's up on top of your screen, Karen, all the way up on top. You should see stop sharing.
Yeah, because I'm not very big here. Let's see. Stop sharing. I don't see it, but anyway, let me, oh, I see it. It's right up there. Okay, great, thank you. On the top of my screen. Thank you, I'm sorry. Okay, so this semester when the Texas crisis, which is ongoing, Jennifer, who is the Arctic ice scientist who knows a lot about the Arctic ice melt and its effect on the weather, I wrote to the class specifically. I asked her to address it so her answer, her discussion is up on the for the class, and they're dialoguing about the Arctic ice. But I also wanted to share an assignment, a writing assignment that they're working on this week. Because I think good writing is not separable from good reading, and they're trying to teach writing in a vacuum away from reading is a lost cause. So I give them a little 3 paragraphs to read. I'm going to read the paragraphs to you, and then I'm going to read just at random the first 5 essays that I read in response to this. I'm not going to read the whole essay. I'll just read you a little bit of what they wrote. This is from Thomas Berry's book, The Great Work. It's called The Meadow Across the Creek. So I asked them to read these 3 paragraphs and then write their own meadow moment. This is Thomas Berry. My own understanding of the great work began when I was quite young. At the time I was some 11 years old. My family was moving from a more settled part of a small southern town out to the edge of town where the new house was being built. The house, not yet finished, was situated on a slight incline. Down below was a small creek, and there across the creek was a meadow. It was an early afternoon in late May when I first wandered down the incline, crossed the creek, and looked out over the scene. The field was covered with white lilies rising above the thick grass, a magic moment. This experience gave to my life something that seems to explain my thinking at a more profound level than almost any other experience I can remember. It was not only the lilies, it was the singing of the crickets and the woodlands in the distance and the clouds and the clear sky. It was not something conscious that happened just then. I went about my life as any young person might do. Perhaps it was not simply this moment. that made such a deep impression upon me. Perhaps it was a sensitivity that was developed throughout my childhood. Yet as the years pass, this moment returns to me. And whenever I think about my basic life attitude and the whole trend of my mind and the causes to which I've given my efforts, I seem to come back to this moment and the impact it has had on my feelings for what is real and worthwhile in life. This early experience, it seems, has become normative for me throughout the entire range of my thinking. Whatever preserves and enhances this meadow in the natural cycle of its transformation is good. Whatever opposes this meadow or negates it is not good. My life orientation is that simple. It is also that pervasive. It applies in economics and political orientation as well as education and religion. So then they write their meadow moments. And one of the things I like about this assignment is that obviously it evokes memory. And they're not always beautiful memories, but I'll just let me read. My meadow moment was when I was a young girl. Growing up, I was so attached to my grandmother. She loved taking care of her garden. Woke up early every morning to get ready, sweep the floors outside, and start to water the flowers and plants. Oh, and plant new ones. My grandmother would teach me the little things on how flowers and trees were living things, and it's important to take care of them. She told me she used to talk to her flowers, and I remember being so confused. I asked her, why do you talk to them if they can't talk back? She said to me, Kayla, they can listen. If you believe, they grow wiser. Oh, they grow off water and sun, but they grow beautifully with kindness and nurture. Ever since then, I appreciated every flower and living thing I've seen. So that's part of one response. Here's another one. Also, I saw the fireflies at night. Fireflies dance freely in the air like dancers. At this moment, I seemed to be one with nature. My friend tried to grab a few fireflies to take home, but I told him that fireflies belong to nature and no one can be above nature. For example, SpongeBob, SquarePants, and Patrick Star like to catch jellyfish, but when they catch the jellyfish, they will release the jellyfish directly instead of taking them home. We need to learn how to live with nature instead of trampling on beautiful nature. There are just two more. What's great, one thing about this assignment too is that the memories are not always happy. Based on the meadow across the creek by Thomas Berry, meadow moment can be defined as the experience gained when walking on the ground covered with white lilies rising above the grass. The singing of the crickets and the woodlands in the distance gives a classical experience of loneliness and mixture of anxiety and fear. My own experience of near death is drawn from the village back in the days when I was 8 years old. My father was in the army and he had been posted to the war at the border of the country. After the completion of the war, my father returned home with an aggressive and traumatizing mood, which could probably have been caused by the hard times he experienced during the war. I was not much aware of the character of my father before he went to war, but luckily I was privileged to read people's minds and ascertain their motives. The drastic change of my father's character made my mother prefer me to the strange man that my father had become after the war due to the awful behaviors he demonstrated. And he goes on with a memory about his father taking him on a very dangerous mountain climb, and he confronts a snake. So just some examples of how that writing assignment works. Do I have a few more minutes or am I out of time?
Maybe a few. Yeah.
Okay, no, I can stop there, actually. Let me stop there. I mean, could talk about the whole design of the course. I would just want to say at the end, we talk a lot about changing consciousness and how we have to change not only behavior, but consciousness and the connection between individual change and societal change. So, and many other issues we talk about. I'll stop there.
Right, and we can also possibly use a question for more on that. So if we again have a few minutes for questions for Karen. So if anybody would like to ask a question, please. Margaret, please.
So who are these students? They're so expressive.
Yeah, exactly. They're from many different countries, you can see. I mean, the one I didn't read was also a student from Bangladesh. This young man from the war, he doesn't identify what war, but I think it's one of the Balkan wars. It could be any number of the little wars, but they're all over. Also I've had 2 firemen in, not this semester, but in previous classes, which has been very interesting for them and very interesting for me.
So they're upper class men and women,
Uh,
juniors and seniors.
Mainly.
Yeah, it's a 300 level course, Margaret. So it's they will need to be a little more advanced to take the class. These are not freshmen in the
Right.
course.
And are they in a particular arts oriented major?
No, they're from all different majors.
Okay.
Yeah. No, yeah. In fact, I would say most of them are not from an arts-oriented major.
Yeah, I should.
I do have some that go from theater to EJ and back and forth, but that's a few, very few.
Maybe I should say, maybe that wasn't clear in the beginning, but both of the core courses of the program are part of the general education program. So the environmental justice course is in the 300 level justice core of the college option. So we specifically wanted these courses to be part of the general education program to draw students from across the college. So many of the students who enroll to fulfill a general education requirement, and they can come from any department across the college, really. And it really does make for extremely interesting class discussions in my experience. Another question for Karen? Right. If not, maybe we can come back to this at the end. I should say real quick that I'm actually quite. I was happy to find out a few. I think it was back in 2019 that the fire science major encourages their majors to take the environmental justice minor. So I've also seen more fire science students in my courses. So there is some synergies are starting to develop at the college, really, over the past 4 or 5 years that are very encouraging to see. All right, let's move on to Milena then, who is also in the environmental justice program and art and music like Mary. So please, Milena.
Okay, so I'll start sharing my screen. And we'll go. Okay, so I'll start with this first picture, which are our very first students. Do you guys hear me? See my screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So these are very first 4 students in our program, and I would like to start with them. When I started teaching in 2014, Introduction to Sustainability Studies, we only had 4 students. We're a very new program. And from this point on, we really grew so much. Now we have so many sections, so many courses, and they're all full with students. I just want to say that I'm excited about that. And I believe not only that, because this is general ed courses, not only that I think attract our students, but also the topic itself. I think more and more students are interested in these topics, and that is great. So let me continue with my slides. And a little bit, I have an idea about some theoretical approaches here to how to bring these topics into across the curriculum to different classes. And something that I see now that what I do, Karen and Mary do the same. We might just use different terminology, but we all start with ethics of care. I think it's really important to start making connections between our own personal values in life, in our community, what really matters to us, and then connect that with environmental justice and sustainability. And you will see right away there are big connections there. And also the students need to make those connections first. We need to care first about nature, about our surroundings, about other people, etc., to make changes. So I think that's the very starting point. And in faculty development day back in 2018, with Paul Bartlett, which is another faculty member in the program, we had a workshop environmental justice and sustainability across the curriculum. And we used a particular template that I think worked really well. And we described this template and other ideas in this chapter that I have here, a book cover right here for you. And I have here the chapter information for you below and the link. The chapter will be accessible in our library very soon as an ebook. So you can take a look at those ideas of it there. I'll just very quickly say what this is about. It's really finding first big ideas, trying to connect big ideas in your course, in your learning objectives in your course, and connecting that to environmental justice principles and sustainability principles as well. Particularly what we have added here is core sustainability meta competencies, which I'll show you in the next slide. Another thing, of course, I think that is important to collaborate between different departments and the faculty. For example, our program faculty can collaborate with other departments on these programs in faculty development workshop, guest speaker visits, or even maybe collaborative assignments in different disciplines. This is what I envision, some kind of a cross-course collaboration. I have seen that that is being developed in some other universities. Also, what I found very interesting is we can use, and what I've been using, our campus, our college as a living laboratory where we can propose different ideas and different solutions in our department. And that way we can work together with between different departments and even between facilities, let's say collaboration with facilities department, which I have done. In some ideas of greening cafeteria, making the green roof at the college. My students and I have proposed that. And with some ideas, I have also brought my students on the EPA's Campus Rainworks Challenge, which is a very good competition. Now, of course, having different local speakers in guest visits, field trips, etc. And let me move on. So those are sustainability meta competencies that I mentioned. System thinking, temporal thinking, interpersonal literacy, ethical literacy, and creativity. And Karen and Mary have mentioned pretty much all this, and they're using this. System thinking, of course, finding connections between different sustainability problems, environmental justice problems. We have to find the connections first to understand the complexity of those issues, from the sources to the solutions and anything in between. Temporal thinking between past, present, and future, learning from the past, learning from indigenous knowledge, for example, learning from past mistakes is what Mary also mentioned, something similar. And connecting interpersonal literacy, I think, is very important. Understanding what other people, what other societies, what other entities, political system itself, how they're thinking, how they're working, and finding connections. And ethical literacy, because all environmental problems are moral problems. And creativity, I think creativity is important. And I, of course, as an artist, I also teach in an art department. I think creativity is important, and our students are seeing more and more to find solutions, to find ideas, new ideas. We need to be more creative because what will bring us in the future are really our creative thinking, our creative ideas, to find some solutions to unknown problems. And I think it's important to bring sustainable development goals that UN has developed, even though they're not perfect, but they are touching upon many different sustainability issues and environmental justice issues. So I think because they're making, like I said here, they're making environmental challenges more concrete and actionable. They're giving us ideas how to action on them. Because a lot of students, they feel like our problems, global environmental crisis is too big that we cannot tackle and we cannot do anything. A lot of them feel frustrated about that. And some examples of assignments that I do, some of the first assignments that I do are ecological footprint surveys, different types of the footprint surveys I use, because I think it's definitely important to for students to see connections between their own personal life, the lifestyle, for example, and environmental issues. How do we all connect and how we can change by changing our action? Oh, sorry. Jump to the next slide already. So surveys, definitely using different questions, looking at the whole broad spectrum of ecological footprint, it really connects different disciplines: politics, economics, chemistry, toxicology, law. And every faculty can create their own questions related to their own discipline, more related maybe to their discipline. I have some examples here. How often do you buy non-recyclable items? How often do you buy recycled paper? Do you reuse things? Do you buy locally grown food? Do you use environmentally friendly soap, detergent? Do you use more public transportation, a private car, a taxi? Do you turn off lights as soon as you leave a room? So even looking at these questions, you can see all different disciplines are already included here. Or this website is also very good, making a very good calculations here, very interesting calculations to see how many planets you need to sustain your lifestyle. And it's you can use that website in your classes. Or use social media. My students like making their own surveys and surveying their community, their friends, their family members on different sustainability topics and see where they are. So they're learning and they're teaching other people, and they're very proud of that once they learn and once they see what other people are thinking. So it's a very good teaching moment for them. How do I make some assignments in regards to ecological footprint survey? This is one example. 1 day consumption, visual journal or a self-portrait. I do this in not only in eco-art and design class that I develop, but also in all different classes that I teach. Different way, they could do 3-day consumption survey or 5-day, 1 week. You can choose the timeline. And then I asked them to make something out of it, to kind of visualize that their consumption, and then to make a comment, to make some kind of a realization. What did they learn from this experience, from this journal? Once we see it, we can understand better what is our connection. And think about solutions. How can we, what is the pattern that they see and how they can change that pattern, what they can change, right? And another survey that I do is in regards to fashion industry, looking at the entire life cycle of fashion industry. We use environmental mapping. I use a lot of environmental mapping in my classes. This is one of them, where students choose 10 of them clothing items or accessories, looking at the labels, where they're produced, putting them on the map, and looking at what is there, you know, what is the true cost to make this item, to ship this item, et cetera, et cetera. and disposal. So entire life cycle of fashion, right? Because fashion is it's the second largest polluting industry, and we are all involved in that. So we have to find that connection. And then in another assignments, sometimes I do it for a midterm project. We make a fashion show, environmental fashion show, where students use their old clothing or materials that they found, like a broken jewelry pieces, and they make something, the new garment that they would actually wear. They use also non-toxic dyes, such as turmeric, blueberries, coffee, tea, something that is not toxic and available. And they make their own designs, their own clothing that they would wear or their family members would wear. They also learn how to sew in those classes. And of course, a lot of field trips. I love field trips. I like science experiments a lot. So like a simple science experiments we do a lot in classrooms as a group projects. And once we're in the classroom, and then bringing them to all around the city. As Mary mentioned, we have so much to see around the city, not just exhibits, museums, visiting environmental organizations, but also looking at the city, looking at the vulnerability of the waterfront. I like to take them on a boat trip to see the coastline, what is on the coast, and then make solutions. Taking them on Gowanus Canal, looking at environmental problems, do the soil testing there. We do that as well. And in Botanical Garden, looking at the plant adaptations. And so being a former Botanic Garden tour guide helps a lot in those. Anyhow, I'll stop here. I don't wanna go over 10 minutes. So I'm open for any of your questions. So I'm gonna stop sharing. And thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening and organizing. And here is my website and information here. So I'm open for questions.
Unmute myself. So thanks, Milena. So again, I think we have just time for a few questions from Milena, and then we still have time to open it up for a general discussion. So any questions for Milena specifically?
Actually, I have one.
Go ahead, Mary.
Hey, Milena. Only because you teach both sustainability and the EK class, right? So because I only do the EK class, sometimes I'm always thinking to myself, gee, I wonder if what I'm doing was already covered in sustainability. Not that it would be bad, because you can always use repetition. But sometimes there are students, and I'm starting to see it more and more, students that are minors, EK minors. So they've taken the sustainability class already and then taking the EK. So I'm always sort of have my eye out for, am I doing something that's a repeat? So how do you draw the line between the two classes?
Mm-hmm. Well, in an environmental justice class, I focus more on the impact on human body and on different groups, right? So more than on environment itself. So that's how I make connections. So I'm covering sustainability topics, sustainability issues in sustainability class. And then in environmental justice, I focus on the impact on human bodies.
Okay.
Across the world, right?
Right.
So that's, yeah. So introduction to sustainability is more broad because it's really introduction to all different sustainability problems, right? From climate change to pollution to all that. But environmental justice is really focusing on the impact of human body, yeah.
So I have a question.
It's this Lindsay and then Margaret. Lindsay, go ahead.
Do you guys go over the Sustainable Development Goals or do any survey about relevant to them specifically?
UN goals.
Them again, the survey about sustainable
Development Goals, the UN Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes, I start my classes with pre-class survey because I want to know what my students already know I want to know what classes environmental they have taken and what is their prior knowledge on different topics, right, that I will be covering in a class. And one of them, especially in both classes, actually ask about sustainable development goals. So I want to know if they know what they are and how to achieve them. And then at the end of the class, because I covered that in my class, at the end of the class, I ask the same survey and I see what they have learned.
So I have to ask you about that after this, because we can get credit in this Aishi Stars for that. But then I also wanted to suggest to everybody that there should be something on the website that go into detail about the accomplishments, the recent accomplishments of what you guys are working on. Like that environmental justice workshop, like all the, where you got published a new book about or an exhibition that you've had.
Yeah, I mean, we have, if you go to publications, it includes faculty publications, but also creative projects. So you'll find Karen's theater productions there, Marianne Molina's art exhibits. The film festival is listed there. So you'll find it under the publication tab.
Well, actually, I don't know who's updating it, because I think Kate.
I've been working on that.
Oh, you have been through, okay, because I haven't been getting all this, so
Yeah.
that's good to know.
Okay, thanks, Lizzie. And just in the interest of time, there was Margaret and then Jennifer. Margaret, if you want.
So this may be a little micro, Milena, but when you asked a question about facilities on campus. I forget how
did I collaborate it?
Yeah, and one of the things.
A couple of years ago, we
Can I just ask my
collaborated with
question? Can I just ask
sure.
my question? So when I walk around campus, remember that, I always notice that the recycling bins, to me, are not clearly labeled. And I keep looking until I find one that clearly says plastic bottles go here, cans go here. And I wonder if your students have remarked on that, or if you've ever asked the facilities department or whichever department it is, how they perceive how well we are recycling on campus.
Actually, we did. When Steve Waxman was still part of the facilities department, we did collaborated with him on a couple of different things. We suggested some of the solutions. One was also about recycling. And then also we collaborated with them regarding the elevators. We actually made a sign, the poster design for the elevators, because students sometimes don't know, or escalators, why they're working. Let's say escalators sometimes are turned off, but we want to save the energy. So my students then talk with Steve Waxman, and we developed some kind of a design to inform other students what is that all about, right? And regarding the recycling, that's another thing that I like to cover, even though it's very basic. We all know it's recycle. We are trying to recycle, but believe it or not, many students don't know how to properly recycle. They don't know those basic things. So I cover that. I cover that in the class. But yes,
it's also true that recycling has been overhyped. I mean,
yes,
that's true.
Most of what gets recycled never stays, never is recycled.
That's true.
So
That's true. We also
many of our students think that if they're recycling, and I hear this, I recycle, that's
right. Not a solution.
That's not an answer. It's not
Yeah.
sufficient.
alas.
That's why I always ask, do you reuse and reduce?
And
Do you think
it's
about
also
reducing your
true that
consumption?
the individual solution is not the solution. We can all be perfect on this panel. We're not. None of us are, right? None of us do everything we should do. But that won't make a bit of difference.
No.
We need public policy and the public interest, and to put it on individuals. I mean, we should be advocating for the Green New Deal, et cetera, et cetera. And we should understand those connections between personal choice and public policy.
Right.
And
Right.
global north, global south, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I just wanted to add something about the whole facilities maintenance issue, in that our student council, the one from last year, led by Musarat were really wonderful. I mean, Mus was one of my EJ students and really included EJ issues in everything the student council advocated for. So the students have definitely been pushing. The other thing is that Herbicide Free Campus, which is a nonprofit started by a student who got actually the entire University of California system to go herbicide free. He was a student athlete that actually talked to the grounds people, mainly because they were spraying and they couldn't practice. And that's when she found out about all the pesticide spraying on their campuses. And they actually convinced the grounds people to let the student athletes pull the weeds. And through the process, they started to learn more, and it turned into an entire nonprofit. They got the entire Hawaii Board of Ed public schools to go herbicide free. Anyway, so one of our students actually got the fellowship last year by Herbicide Free Campus, and they were just in the process of having meetings with our maintenance and such about this very issue of what we are injecting into our green roof when the lockdown happened. And unfortunately, those meetings never happened, and probably the spraying is, I'm sure it's still continuing.
There's also the divestment movement, which is also student movement to divest from fossil fuels. The universities, another important initiative.
And the students also got some of the water bottle refills that are in our campus. So there has been initiatives that the students have
with the environmental club.
Just because we're running short on time, I just want to be sure that Jennifer also gets a chance to ask her question. Jennifer, why don't you go ahead?
Actually, it wasn't a question. It's nice to see everybody.
Okay.
We've all been away for so long. But Lindsay asked about the sustainable development goals, and I just wanted to let everyone know that Rosemary Barbary from sociology is working on a new class that's going to be one of the like 200 transfer classes, that's specifically justice-oriented transfer classes, and it's going to be created around the sustainable development goals. Like that's the topic of the class, and her hope with that is that it will essentially then sort of introduce transfers to the sustainability program and to the ICJ program. So that's exciting for us.
Okay, great. Thanks for letting us know. I'll actually send an email to her. I didn't know about this, so it's just.
Yeah, she checked in with me and Gohar because she knows us from ICJ stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's good to know. Then, I can also let Sandra know if we just all are in touch about that. That's really good to hear.
Yeah, just sharing that.
Great, thanks. We have 5 minutes left in this session, and so we should open it up for general questions, or Karen, if you want to say a word about the larger goals of your course, because you were cut short there for a moment, but just want to open it up for any final questions. Margaret, please.
So are the graduates of this program finding career positions in the field of environmental justice?
I think whatever field anybody goes into now, whether it's teaching, nursing, law, I mean, you name it, environmental justice is going to be part of their field.
True.
And so I think the carrying of this knowledge into wherever they go is crucial.
I can say that I'm in touch with a bunch of the grads, and some of them who are actual minors, and it's a mixed bag. There's some that are, in the process of going through law school with an environmental focus. I know some that are looking into doing things like urban design with a sustainability focus. And then others who actually have gone into it and then left, had some jobs, things like at Fab Scrap and then the Walden Free Foundation. And a lot of those jobs came from their connections at John Jay. And then interestingly enough, ended up doing something else which makes infinitely more money, but enables them to be able to afford to be doing more environmental work, which is interesting. So I know of 2 such cases like that.
One of my very good students from last spring, I just wrote a recommendation for graduate school in psychology. She works with autistic children now, and she wants to continue that work. But as I say, this knowledge goes everywhere with wherever anybody goes. I had an EMT guy, an emergency ambulance guy, and he did a paper on plastic. I mean, he started, we all are confronted by the amount of plastic that's being used in the medical profession. And of course, the pandemic has made that much, much, much worse in every way. So again, I think the knowledge goes everywhere and should. There's no field that's unaffected by climate disaster.
And I think, I mean, this also speaks not only to the initial goal for the program and minor, but also for this series. I mean, we offer a minor that's specifically meant to inform the thinking of the students in their majors, so that whatever career they go into, they have the knowledge to carry that forward into, you know, whatever place they work, to make the change in the place that they're trained for in their majors. So again, in the spirit of making sure that all those questions which really affects everybody and anybody, no matter where they go, no matter what they do, are integrated into the majors at the college and hopefully across the curriculum. So I do hope that, you know, today and the other upcoming panels in this series will be helpful to just generate ideas of ways that you in your individual fields can integrate maybe, you know, units into your courses to just create those synergies, or maybe collaborate with other faculty. And just because we are short on time, one thing before I forget it, if anybody is interested, the Environmental Justice Program has a listserv, and a lot of information also goes out through that listserv that, you know, people share about ongoing projects, news. So if anybody here is interested, send me an email. My email is also on the TLC website. I can also put it in the chat at the end. And I'm happy to add you to our program listserv so you're in touch with us. And just want to say real quick that the next event in this series will be on March 16th, when Gohar Petrosian from Criminal Justice, Sandra Swenson from Science, and Guido Giordano, who is the graduate of the MA program in International Criminal Justice and is now teaching in the Environmental Justice Program. We'll be talking about environmental and wildlife crime and ways to integrate those issues across the curriculum. So I just want to thank Gina again. I want to say hello to Dean Byrne, who arrived shortly before. And just thanks to all of you again for coming. Gina, do you want to say anything in closing? Aladara?
So glad everyone showed up. Thanks for being persistent about getting in if you had issues. And we are recording and we'll have this available in the next couple of weeks for everyone to see. Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
everybody for coming. Really appreciate it. Take good care.